Cost of living in Ghana, road accident, and the plight of squatters. Hello, thanks for joining us here on Joy News Prime. Our headlines this hour: organized labor stalemate with government intensifies as 4 unions storm out of a meeting with the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission following a directive to call off their strike over the cost of living allowance.
They do not want to welcome us to this meeting, and we cannot begrudge them.
They held all organized labor hostage, and this is a betrayal of trust.
But was the meeting conclusive?
Negotiations are inconclusive, and teachers strike. The teachers' education sector strike is still on.
There's an agreement that we adjourn and come back. So we will adjourn in the course of the week. We will reconvene, and then negotiation will start.
We'll bring you details of that crunch meeting also here on Joy News Prime. Squatters under high tension lines at East Legon vow not to move despite a demolition exercise sanctioned by the Ghana Grid Company.
What we want you to know is that we are part of human beings.
But the moment brief notice said today, tomorrow, 3 days today, we are coming to demolish your area.
Hello again, thanks for choosing us. It was expected to stabilize the labor front and initiate conversations that will favorably consider the demands of labor. But it appears the parties are far from reaching any compromise. At that crunch meeting Tuesday, 4 unions, Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, the Ghana National Association of Teachers, National Association of Graduate Teachers, and the Coalition of Concerned Teachers stormed out of the meeting following a directive to call off their strike. The pre-tertiary teacher unions on strike in demand of 20% of their base pay as cost of living allowance. Other unions have joined the chorus demanding same. My colleague Michael Ashali monitored the meeting and our reports.
The second meeting to discuss their demand for COLA ended without any offer being made by government. Unlike the first meeting, the Minister for Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, was present. Government refused to start negotiations while some unions were still on strike. The teacher unions stormed out of the meeting, refusing to call off their industrial action.
Meaning what?
Yes.
They do not want to welcome us to this meeting, and we cannot begrudge them. So that is why we are walking out.
When you say they don't want to welcome you, but you were in there and they walked in and...
Yes, we received invitation under organized labor, and we are part of organized labor.
They are indicating and asking us to call off our strike before negotiations begin.
Exactly.
So what it means is that the government side is not ready to continue negotiations unless the teacher unions call off strike. They've held all organized labor hostage. And this is a betrayal of trust, because the understanding we had is that organized labor has been convened for us to find solution to the issue of COLA. Right now, since we are undesirable, we think that before they even walk us out of the meeting, we are walking out of the meeting ourselves. Thank you very much. Yes.
President of CLOCSAC, Dr. Bampo Addo, left the meeting before it ended. Deputy Employment Minister Bright Reku Brobe says government will only meet the labor unions when the strike is called off.
We have had to call off the meeting. We have had to adjourn, because both parties, labor and government, think that we can't do this whilst a party is on strike. So the agreement is that we are going off, talk to each other. They call off the strike and we come again to meet.
What would you now be telling them?
They should exercise patience like they have done. Hopefully, as they call off the strike, we will engage, and then everything will be settled. Thank you.
So how soon are you expecting them to come back to the negotiating table?
Very soon we will have that.
All right. But Deputy Secretary General of the TUC, Joshua Ansa, hopes the next meeting will be fruitful while supporting the stance of the teachers.
I'm not disappointed at all.
Why are you not disappointed?
I know that is the way it is going to travel, so I'm not disappointed at all. No, you weren't in the room.
Yeah.
Nothing was put on the table. And we want the betterment of our people and want very good things for our people. So any meeting that couldn't end today, we are sure that at the next meeting, maybe something good will come out of that. No, I'm not disappointed at all, because you see, today's meeting was for organized labor. It wasn't for teacher unions meeting. It was organized labor, and organized labor include all the teacher unions and all other sector unions. So if you say that you want to deal with teacher unions in this matter, a matter that affects all workers in this very country, I don't think it's fair. So I'm not disappointed that they went away. For now, I think that they have declared a strike, and they are still on strike. And I think that if I were them, if I was in their shoes, definitely that's the same thing that I would do.
Meanwhile, some other unions present were happy with the progress of the negotiations. Here is Vice President of the Ghana Medical Association, Dr. Justice Yankson.
Best is that we are still going to meet again, and that is the most important thing. So as and when the next meeting is called, we will all continue.
The Deputy Minister tells me that you all agreed to adjourn today's meeting.
That's why I'm saying that we've agreed to adjourn and we will continue. So as and when it's called, we all will go for the meeting.
The meeting between government reps and that of labor unions to discuss the cost of living allowance has again ended in a stalemate. Government is hoping to call another meeting as soon as possible to probably start negotiations and finalize them. For Joy News, Michael Ashale.
Now, some members of parliament have described as justified calls from organized labor for government to pay the cost of living allowance. The 20% of base pay allowance, according to labor unions, is to cushion their workers on the prevailing economic challenges and the high cost of living. Listen to some MPs who say the demand is genuine and legitimate, but labor must meet government halfway.
I think absolutely justified. What is the current rate of inflation? You remember last year when they were giving 3% and they were promised 4% today. Inflation at that time was less than even about 12%. Today, inflation is almost 30% inflation. So look at the gallop. So it has rendered their wages and salaries useless and cannot even take their take-home pay, cannot even take them home. The issue that you are raising is government in position to pay, given the state of the economy. Who has run the state of the economy to where it is today? That's the first question we ask. Is it not the same government? So who should bear responsibility for that?
The demands by the labor front is an evidence of the continuous hardship that we find ourselves in. You have rising costs of living, and yet it doesn't correspond with payments to labor, and unfortunately government has not been able to show leadership in that regard. I think that if government really want to show leadership, government can come up with programs that lead to either a cut down in government expenditure, cut down in either salaries and allowances and so on and so forth, as a good fit, to encourage the labor front that we are going through this hardship together.
Yeah, and the situation as it is now is because government has not come to the table with anything in hand. If your workers are on strike, they are making demands, at least you should go and tell them, oh, this is what I can offer. So once no offers are made, it will be difficult for the teacher unions to call off the strike.
I will also beg the labor front to temper justice with mercy, but that does not mean that government should not do anything for them. I think some 15%, 10%, 15% for now, they could do.
Let's do some other stories now. Squatters residing under high tension lines at East Legon have vowed not to move despite a demolition exercise sanctioned by the Ghana Grid Company. Their legal structures were the subject of bulldozers Tuesday morning as the task force took on the areas marked as highly risky. Hundreds of the squatters looked on as what they have known to be home for some as long as 2 years were destroyed. It took an intervention by the Ayawaso West Wagon MP Lydia Saram Al-Hassan to get the task force to allow them to salvage their belongings. Manuel Canton was there for us.
This entire area was occupied by shacks which, some of the squatters actually lived in. Right now, the entire area is leveled to the ground. What we're seeing now is remnants and really just debris from the demolished structures which formerly stood here. In the shots also you could see a bit of activity from scrap dealers who now are just scavenging through the rubble to pick what they can, of course, for the purposes of selling these scrap materials. But at the crux of this particular issue are the many squatters now who have been left homeless, because indeed these shacks that they called home are now down to the ground.
How do you call it? Some session, how do you call it? Yes. Mama brief notice. Say today, tomorrow, 3 days today, we are coming to demolish your area. So be prepared. We didn't have any notice at all. We are today being Tuesday, we're supposed to go work. My boss have been calling me since Monday 6 o'clock. I'm still standing here.
What we want you to know is that we are part of human beings. There's no fear for us. There's no pity for us. Is it my like? I don't like it. But it's not for the government that I pay for. But they should know that if you are not paying, we are all helping ourselves. We are all human beings. You are a human being. I'm also a human being. And that doesn't mean that if you have a building sleeping in, and I don't have a building, I'm not a human being. I'm part of the humans. If you call a woman, I'm also part of human being. So you can't sack all of here and say that we should go.
Me know what saying you. It's a 20 years abrabo ambo you na. Ma tell I can no see me. It's a me yadan. Shamo money no see way. E money si wa shamo na say bedwa.
Many of the squatters were left biting their nails as they watched their belongings get destroyed. Parents with children were utterly devastated.
I am fine. I don't mind and so you nuclear. You need baby that. Baby, I be there. It's a quality than anybody. It is a matter of perform better. No more to see that be my. No more catch and then cocoa trend to the more. We are not. Yes, you copy baby internal. Now, the baby today, you should see a pa.
Palanini, penny poor woman here. Your Tossumi, Nuni. Kitwan is for 2 years. A saying for an Colana, I must say, baby. A saying I'm in a better.
How many years?
It took the intervention of the sitting MP at Ayawaso West Wuogon, Lydia Seiram Al-Hassan, to prevent an altercation between the agitated squatters and the task force. They insist they will not move despite the action by Gridco.
And we are not going anywhere. What we want the government to know that we are not going anywhere. Today or tomorrow, we will be staying here till that where we want to go, we will go. We are not going anywhere because we are all voting for you. It's my hand that make you be there where you are. It's not that if I'm sleeping inside the wood, I'm not a human being. I'm part of human being. They should have patience with us. They should fear for us.
Yanu ya you. Into yanu biani case. Ya ton ya drian yan katafufu ko konte banku. Abanku and light soup. Into wa bebe ma obi pa ya ton ansan ya ti omu case. Ya buno but ya beton. Okay. Ya vim pass ya ba beton. Ya no waton ya nti obi an case. Ebe mutu ya kra ebe sen abobo. Ya se aponchi suro higher onidi into yanu ya suro higher be didi.
Well, we'll be getting the reaction of Gridco to this development shortly, but let's go live to the scene. My colleague Samuel Kojo is there for us. Kojo, if you can hear me, the residents vowed not to leave the scene. Have they kept their vow?
The residents said it will be difficult for them to leave because they do not know where exactly they will be going to get an abode from here. So here I've seen people who are packing their little stuffs that are left from the things they had before the demolition. Others I've seen also are trying to put up a makeshift kiosk. I don't know what it is, but if you can follow me and if you're watching, all that you're seeing here are debris from the demolition that happened this morning. People are trying to gather the little they can salvage from the demolition exercise that occurred here this morning. Let me try and find out from some of the people who were here about the thought of not living here because it will be difficult to find somewhere else to rest. Someone is telling me that this is where they plan to sleep tonight, in the open space. Whether they will be bitten by mosquitoes or not, they have nowhere to go, and this is where they'll be sleeping. Well, I have some of the residents here. Let's try and engage them to find out what's the next steps. Chief, let's say. Na yebubu dine area modaso ha.
Because in this case, say any baby so ebeko. So adeno, na adena babe. Nti no ye be chokwansa, ye nya baby a na ye ko, ye nya baby a ye ntibi ni baby a ebeko sesia because ye kitankola. Na we da no so aye senkekrofan say mo consider kakra. Because ye sinkrofo bi susu ye nkwase ade bi wa ha ni de ni nyoma bi ekoso but enye ye nyina. Se ba ka ya ha kwanka ye ju. Esrofo na ye a omo ha adwen. And no makana babe kaye.
Esrofo no mo ye hwan mo.
Esro mo
ebi wo baby foforo ho.
Say tresa anu esun. Ntene na akokosto sa problem ni na abama. Ye da be dwudwure ya ye wa hanka ya ye wa hade hanka ye ni problem ha dwukon no bibia nkoso wa ha. Obi ati ni baby din, obi akwadwuma ba wa be hye ho. Because say no ye na nya na e wo sky timi rent dan. Ti abe kiosk kakra ye tare. Ye madam for ekire na so ye dwuma kakra na nya bibi kakra di. And say o ma be sese ha no.
Enti anadwi mo da say ya o ha.
Ya da because last time we ya da ye. Oh ya da ye because park ni so ya da. They say asema me kache pa wo se man so nto. No pe. So man so nto. Enti no
na nsa wo se nkoda ka ho.
Ye won kola anti ya kepu nkola no. Ya piku ka piku kola ye won kola. Mi se kwa obi obata on so bi kwa na ebobo bi no. So enti yesra abanu on consider because ahanu on bebubu wi a omukọ obi enu oda ha enti no se bia bebi kwa na on be motuma ye de aboa ya e bia mra bi kwa na be di so wa hapokra panka ye pe so because haye
enti na anadwi bibia nkata moso mo da sa
bibia kata yesu na so na ye to aba se tuntu wi na mari da chimia metima ko jalla so to aba
eno da eno wo ho na moment anadwi oni nkoda ni na beda ha mon bibia nkata
tuma be kata yesu ye tuma be kata yesu ada nti sometimes omunya consideration mayen sometimes they have to get consideration mayen because enye easy masa ene adwuma ni ho before be boaska na hide na enye say dance boy dene so since sanya ma we na nye isana na epe sebi omo wo bi ene e won adwuma no.
Okay, so what he is basically saying is that they have nowhere to go, and this is where they will be sleeping. They will be passing the night. They will be sleeping in the open with their children. According to him, it has happened before, and they slept on the park with their children. They do have children, and this is where they'll be sleeping tonight, in the open with no covering. They are saying that the authorities should have considered the season within which they are because of the rains, and should have waited to when the weather is clear for this demolition to have happened. They are also saying that authorities could have even given them some set of rules to go by, and they would have abided by them because there's nowhere for them to tend to. But interesting, there's someone who's still putting up a kiosk. I'll come back to you, but let me find out from the guy who's molding the kiosk here to understand what's happening. Chief, at saying na ade ye bubu no ene ya na wo san abofoforo de ntia
mazam pacho me ne bebi ameda ntina me sambo he no nti ye de ye ne bebi akọ na me ne bebi aso a mbeko ntina me na me yire ne me mba so na ejina ase nti me ne bebi ameda
until born be na them because of insu no
ye ne bebi ayebeda nti ye nu ne ya demu ene na pa ye sori an ye de yeti adom ne hwe se ye bekonya bebi a ye benya ada for the meantime ana
nti senior aye wo gidi se obetumi awie ma o wife no nkoda o nkoda sen
me o nkoda 3
wo jide so betumi awie na omonya baby ada
ompa cho nyame bo ambawie ne ya dam ne nyame bo achina no ya pe baby.
So he says he will make sure he completes this because he cannot see his wife and the children, 3 children, to sleep in the open without a covering, and so he wants to complete the shelter for them for tonight. Tomorrow morning they would go around looking for a different place to lodge. Let me try and ask his wife. Chief, mama na saying
Embache yo.
Ukuno bobadi what did they say between we?
Nyame wo ho. So obi nim say nyame wo, nyame ni ho a ye de ye gidi say nyame wo ho. Eye den a ye benya baby ada.
Na after ochina no meden.
After ochina na ya hwede ye nyame de ye besan abeye.
Na mo nya baby foforo mbe ne den.
Nya baby a ye bekọ ye nya baby foforo so a ye besan manage ni sa.
Na ofihin.
Ye free ball ga na vrongo.
What na for bosum be saying?
Ya tuna ha be ya bosum ni de mba ha nche.
All right. So
ya obi mu be ye say a mu be bukura na mu ye say kura pombo bi ya ni baby ya nti ya ye de ye nim say nyame na be boa ye nti ye den kura ye be manage na ya da
na eba
na de ya cha na ya hwe baby ya nyame de ya befa
eba say nkoda mo didi ye
na bi ndidi ya no fita no pa na ye den didi ye ja kura ya nso
San koda de ko so mun didi na pa de serious.
Yes. Ye kura mpo ya dad sen ya duane na esisi ya ntumi ndu. Ya ye ma die we kura mpo ama na drink kura mpo wonnom.
Amsa kura ni nyanka adwuma me ye obeye bi.
Nyame wo.
Anyway, so she is saying that yes, they believe that they will be able to complete this temporary shelter for the family so that tomorrow morning they would see where else life will lead them. But she again tells me that since morning when this demolition exercise happened, they and the kids have not eaten. It's difficult, but we are still here. I'm told this place is the bridge area in Bauleshi. Let's try and run you through how the whole place is. So you see debris all around from the structures that were pulled down this morning here. If you're seeing on your screens now, wood, you can find mattresses, plywood, boxes, iron sheets, some of them not too many, but you see a lot of plywood, a lot of wood here. I see one woman who has set up like a spot, so there are drinks, and then I think this is an Indomie joint, huh? So she has some drinks here, as well as things to prepare Indomie for the people who are here. This is it. Mami, I had to say,
your daddy.
What's na bosom be saying? And I'm fe be saying.
Pacho 2 years ni. 2 years. Pacho last year sa na yombe bubu ye tena sa because ni eni baby akọ. Ti ye tena sa enene so o ma se be bubu ye. Ni e da so tim.
Enti no mo be sa atena mu sa sisi mo dan no.
Debi. Ye ni baby akọ e na ye ni scan so. Yen pan kitin na ye di na ene ye di boaba ye ho ne ye ma ti ye ni baby akọ
so
papa ye ni baby akọ na baby on me go school crapo papa be come ya me papa na se papa wi ye ni baby aye be ko papa ifa na me be ko eja ifa me be ko papa me ni baby am de be ko papa haya na miniska me be kwa rent time eja mbuaye wase papa ye mbuaye wase mbuaye
onkoda no wo msan
pacha me nkwala omo was 6
omo ina wa ha
pacha
omko school
pacha amko school balesi
enti sisi aba ne say den na mo be
da se de ye be ya ne se mbuaye na pe na baby aye di nkwala no e betso
enti anadwum be den
anadwo baby aye be dan krampo na ya nso krampo na emura krampo ye ni baby aye de ye de beta papa yes.
And that's a passionate appeal from one of the squatters there affected by today's demolition, asking government to come to their aid. Let's go onto the phone lines now and get a reaction of Gridco to this. We are joined by one of the managers at Gridco. He is on Zoom, Engineer Bernard Jan. Mr. Jan, I'm grateful for your time here on Joy News Prime. Let's start from the immediate report we're getting from my colleague Kojo Brace on the ground. We are seeing that the people are again putting up some of the structures. This happened last year. They stayed on. It's happened today. They have vowed not to move, and we are seeing the reconstruction there. Your reaction to that?
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Good evening to your viewers and listeners as well. This is a problem that we have on our hands as an organization, Gridco, and like you said rightly, we have done this before, and this is not new. But the difference is that this time around, we are going to sustain the effort.
How do you intend to do that when the reconstruction has already started?
Yes, so we are doing 3 things together. The first one is that we will continue to engage and educate, improve on education, and make sure that people actually understand the dangers in living within the right of way. We have also set up a task force to increase the policing around these areas to make sure that we are visible, and also make sure that we don't allow for new structures to be erected. And then the third one is that we are going to continue to do the demolition as we have seen today. So all these 3 things are going to be done concurrently. And we are sure that if we are able to sustain this effort, we are going to rid our right of way of this encroachment, and also to help improve public safety and improve power supply reliability together.
When will this task force get to work? Because this is day one. If you have a task force, they should be on ground to ensure that indeed you have a successful exercise where you see all the people off the scene. When will they get to work, seeing that we have nobody on the ground and, reconstruction has started, the people vowing not to leave?
And so, like I told you, the task force is now in place. So we are not going to sleep like in the past. We will come and demolish and go and sleep. We are not. We are going to make sure that we increase policing, like I said earlier. So those who have started the reconstruction or erection of new structures, I would advise that they should put a hold to that, because we are coming back to demolish them.
Give us details of this task force. Is it a police task force, a joint unit? Who exactly constitutes this task force?
It's an internal task force within Gridco, and it's been done together with the district assemblies across the country and key stakeholders who we call partners. So we are engaging them, they are helping us, they are supporting us to be able to sustain this effort.
You mentioned security. Some of the squatters who have spoken to us say you are targeting them deliberately, and that it is not necessarily about the security of your equipment, but indeed the security of the area, that specific enclave has become a den for criminals, so to speak. And so this is why you are carrying out this exercise, and not necessarily to safeguard your equipment.
We are carrying out this exercise for 2 key reasons. The first one is for their own safety, public safety. If we live under the transmission lines, and if you have ever seen a transmission line of this size and nature snap, you will never go near transmission line. It's very, very dangerous, and we don't want anything to befall them. That is number one. Number two, these transmission lines are the ones that are supplying power to Ghanaians and even beyond. We want to have uninterrupted access to this line so that when there's a fault, we can speedily work on the fault and restore power. So it is one of the ways to make sure that our power supply is reliable, is to ensure that the right of way is rid of squatters and encroachers, so that we can have free access to them for maintenance when the need arises. So these are 2 key reasons why we are doing this.
Another concern, a major one for the squatters today, they say that you did not give them notice, and they think that is not fair. For some of them who say they were willing to leave, they expected that you drew their attention to today's exercise. Why did you not notify them of this demolition exercise?
I'm sorry, but the engagement started in October 2021. We've been engaging all the people involved together with our partners. This engagement has been going on since October 2021, and I am not sure there's anybody down there who says that he has never been engaged. We have engaged them, we have educated them. The education is still ongoing, and we are not even going to stop.
And they knew that you were starting the demolition today?
They knew that we were coming. They knew.
Now, you say you are not going to stop. From Baaleshi, where next? Where are you going to?
It's a nationwide thing that we are doing. In fact, we are going to review what happened today, and then we are going to take lessons and then continue to deploy this exercise across the country.
Engineer, thank you very much for your time here on Johnny's Prime. That's Engineer Bernard Jan, an electrical engineer with GRIDCO, responding to today's exercise. And you're seeing on the screens there, my colleague Kojo Brace by a baby who is sleeping in the open. Let's go live to the scene.
It knows is the mother is around to provide motherly love. Well, let's try and see. Mommy, let's say, and how many months?
3 months.
3. What now? How many years?
Me aunt now how many years da?
Okay. Bosum saying.
Bosum mienu.
Okay. Who you now buy?
You free away. Kofi Togo yard.
Kofi Togo yard number.
Mba try.
Okay. Na ukrom ni ho.
Me krom mi wo aplau.
Aplau. Wo ye den wo ha.
Me ni mi kunu etina ha se. Me kunu ye baba. Okay. Me ni ye na etina ha se. Moy tuo wo Kofi Togo yard ni na e ba ha se. Na ye ba na mi wu akran 3 months ni.
Enti nembe den.
Eni baby na ebeda. Eni baby ebeda, eni ska crampo. Eni ska eni baby ebeda anti mi ba na ho na mi sumeda mi ba ni che ho no mu.
Eh. Ahia na obeda oba ni che wa ha. Eh. Na se ntonton be yo dodo.
Se tutu ye, tutu bibia mi niam nso so mo tutu bibia. Enti aha se na me da mi ba ni che.
So she's saying that they were moved from one area where they were squatting to this place. She lives here with her husband. Her husband is a barber. She's lived here for around 2 months. It should be more than 3 months because also 3 months. So I mean a little over 3 months because this baby, according to her, was delivered in this place. And now that this has happened, this is where she'll be spending the night with a baby because they have nothing, no money for them to look for anywhere else to sleep. So tonight, all that they'll be doing is to sleep beside this little baby who is still smiling to me. Well,
a lactating mother, 3-month-old baby, and many others will be sleeping rough at Baaleshi tonight. The plight of the squatters there after that GRIDCO demolition. This is Johnny's Prime with me, Ernest Kojo Manu. We're taking a break. When we return, we have more stories for you. Please stay with us. You're welcome back to Johnny's Prime with me, Ernest Kojo Manu. Now, a 7-member Supreme Court panel on Tuesday slammed Fix the Country convener Oliver Barker-Vormawor for his role in a case filed by the group and 2 other pressure groups. Now, Mr. Barker-Vormawor appeared as lawyer for Benjamin Darko of Fix the Country, Democracy Hub LBG, and Democratic Accountability Lab. The case filed by the 3 had asked the Supreme Court to punish the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority for going ahead with the implementation of the e-levy policy despite an impending interlocutory application that was filed by 3 members of parliament. The court described the application as frivolous, ordering the youth activists to pay an amount of 10,000 cedis to the GRA. Court correspondent Joseph Akable reports.
contended that the Ghana Revenue Authority should not have proceeded to implement the e-levy once 3 legislators filed for an injunction. When the case was called on Tuesday, the panel presided over by Justice Nene Amegacha did not take kindly to the processes filed by Mr. Bakavomawo. The panel first questioned why he had failed to name the specific official he wanted to be the subject of the contempt action and why that official had not been served. The court drew the lawyer's attention to the High Court rules and asked that he read the rule. Mr. Bakavomawo, however, replied that he did not readily have the rules with him. This did not sit well with Justice Amegacha, who questioned why the youth activist had come to court without his tools. It then questioned the title of the case that had been filed. It also questioned the legal basis of the action against the Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority. The panel described the applicants as bystanders. It demanded a specific legal authority is provided by Mr. Bakavomawo for this legal action. You just rushed to the court.
Justice Professor Ashikote said. Justice Amegacha also took over.
You just rushed to the court. So any matter, a third party can jump in. You want us to punish a high-ranking official, and you're saying anyone can just show up, like just walking along the roadside and decide to take such an action?
The court proceeded to deliver its ruling without even hearing from the Attorney General's office or lawyers for the GRA. It dismissed the case and awarded a cost of 10,000 cedis against the youth activist. The case was heard by Justices Nene Amegacha, Professor Ashikote, Mariama Owusu, Lovelace Johnson, Gertrude Tokonu, Professor Henrietta Mensah Bonsu, and Emmanuel Kulendi.
Parliament. Now the Speaker, Alban Badbin, has tasked 5 committees of Parliament to investigate the concerns of school feeding caterers and also the National Food Buffer Stock Company, which is struggling to perform its role. The school feeding caterers embarked on a strike to demand an increase in their feeding grant from 97 pesos to 3 cedis. The Buffer Stock Company also has been struggling to provide food to some senior high schools across the country. Parliamentary correspondent Kekwa Santi has the rest of the story.
Speaker of Parliament Alban Badbin paid a surprise visit to the 2 state agencies last month to learn firsthand their challenges. The Speaker at the time backed the calls of the school feeding caterers for an increase in their grants. The Speaker has now been making the issue a priority for MPs. He bemoaned the poor state of the National School Feeding Program.
A matter of concern and of public interest has been brought to my attention in the aftermath of the caterers of the school feeding program's recent protest and strike action. The caterers, who ceased operations in May of this year, are requesting that their grants be increased from 0.97 pesos to 3 Ghana cedis per child per meal. The situation we are in now affects the vulnerable school children and future leaders of this country.
He also explained that management of both entities explained to him their struggles and called on MPs not to turn a blind eye.
My first stop was at the National Food Buffer Stock Company, where I met with the Chief Executive Officer Alhaji Hanan Abdul Wahab. Challenges in areas such as stocking for government use, recent price increases in food items, which have stalled the government initiative to roll out plans for price stabilization of goods and services, and the inability of the company to stock at the peak of harvest. The story was similar at the Ghana School Feeding Program Secretariat. During my interaction with the national coordinator, Mrs. Gertrude Kwashiga, she bemoaned the Ministry of Finance inability to pay the caterers on time.
The Speaker has now tasked the Committees on Education, Gender, Children and Social Protection, Health, Food and Agric, and then the Finance Committee to investigate the issues and report back to the House by October.
Let it not be said that we are part of the generation of leaders who supported this indecisiveness in standing for the protection and development of the child.
The month of June has recorded significantly lower numbers of road traffic crashes as compared to the same month last year. This according to provisional statistics released by the National Road Safety Authority. Analysis of categories of vehicles involved in such crashes showed that motorcycles constituted the least of all the vehicle types involved, with a greater crowd leading the chart with a higher number of casualty situations. My colleague Kofi J of our research desk joins me via Zoom with a breakdown of the figures. Kofi, First of all, you've done a comparative analysis of the figures. Is there any good news beyond the June record?
Right, so Ernest, we looked at the usual 5 indicators, and then just like you said, there's some good news for these 5 indicators since all recorded a reduction in the period under review. So first is the reported cases, which dropped by 6.12%, with a total number of vehicles involved also dropping by 1.19%. Also, pedestrian knockdowns also decreased by 7.76%. And then the biggest decline was the number of persons killed, which dropped significantly by more than 10.5% in the period under review, while injuries experienced at least a decline among these 5 indicators with a percentage decrease of just 2.33% in the period under review, Ernest.
And Kofi, we know that the Greater Accra and the Ashanti regions have been leading when it comes to these indicators. Has anything changed per what we have now, per the record we have?
Well, nothing has changed, Ernest. The trend is still the same. The Greater Accra and the Ashanti regions remain on top of both the fatalities and then the number of crashes table. And in terms of the total number of fatalities, Greater Accra and Ashanti region and also the Eastern region all recorded deaths above 200 in the period under review. And just like you said, if you categorize, the type of vehicles involved, we had private vehicles having the biggest share of the pie, which is around 44%, commercial vehicles 35%, and motorcycles 21%. But the good news is, the total number of crashes involving motorcycles have also declined in the period under review.
That's some good news there, Kofi. Thank you very much. Isaac Kofi is a data analyst with the Joy Research Desk, joining us with those statistics here on Joy News Prime. Let's take a break here on the news. We'll bring you some more.